Now we're diving into a critical moment for us as Indians, Operation Sindoor, and the bold diplomatic push that followed. In May 2025, we launched Operation Sindoor, a series of airstrikes targeting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pak-occupied Kashmir. This was our response to a horrific terror attack in Pahalgam, Kashmir, on April 22nd, 2025, where 26 civilians, many of them Hindu pilgrims, lost their lives. What followed was an intense 88-hour war, ending with a ceasefire on May 10th, reportedly initiated by Pakistan. We made it clear that this ceasefire was negotiated directly between our Indian military and theirs, shutting down any talk of external mediation. Let's unpack what happened next and why it matters to us. After the conflict, we didn't stop at military action. New Delhi launched Operation Sindoor Outreach, an unprecedented global diplomatic campaign. We sent 7 multi-party parliamentary delegations to 33 countries to rally support and isolate Pakistan for its alleged role in fueling terrorism. One of the standout teams, led by Congress MP Shashi Tharoor, traveled to the United States, Guyana, Panama, Colombia, and Brazil to present our case. Their mission was crystal clear: expose Pakistan's hand in the Pahalgam attack and other incidents with hard evidence, justifying our military retaliation. Tharoor called Operation Sindoor a precise, proportionate, and morally justified counter-terror action. We wanted the world to see that we're exercising responsible self-defense and setting a new normal. Cross-border terror attacks will not go unanswered. By sending MPs from different parties, we showed the world that despite our domestic differences, we stand united against terrorism. Visiting the 9/11 Memorial in New York was a powerful move to connect our fight against terrorism with the global struggle, while also countering Pakistan's narrative, especially as they sent their own team, led by former Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto, to the US and UN. The Tharoor delegation's US visit was all about public diplomacy, not just high-level talks. Their schedule was strategic, hitting Guyana, Panama, Colombia, Brazil, and then the US around June 3rd, timed with Congress being back in session after Memorial Day. In New York on May 24th, they spoke at the Indian consulate to a crowd of Indian American community leaders, media personalities, and think tank folks, including former PepsiCo CEO Indra Nooyi. Tharoor laid out the Pahalgam attack, Pakistan's role, and our zero-tolerance stance. The 9/11 memorial visit was a symbolic gesture, aligning our pain with America's. In Washington, D.C., they likely met members of the India Caucus and Foreign Affairs committees. But here's the thing: no top Biden-Trump administration officials, like Secretary of State Marco Rubio or the National Security Advisor, were on their public schedule. Pakistan's delegation, on the other hand, reportedly secured meetings with Rubio and the NSA. Instead, we focused on think tank scholars, academics, journalists, and our ambassador in Washington. There might have been low-key briefings with State Department officials or congressional staffers, but these were routine, not headline-making. Our highest-ranking contacts were likely sympathetic Congress members or policy experts, not the administration's big names. This lack of top-level meetings shows we didn't have direct access to Washington's elite. Indian officials said the U.S. only expressed concern during Operation Sindoor, and we handled it on our terms. Meanwhile, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri's separate visit to Washington from May 27-29 likely covered sensitive talks with senior officials, leaving the MPs to focus on public outreach. We engaged U.S. civil society, the diaspora, and media, reinforcing our narrative among those groups, but we didn't break through to the Trump administration's top policymakers. The U.S. response was polite but cautious. They condemned the Pahalgam attack and urged de-escalation on both sides. President Trump even claimed credit for the ceasefire, which we firmly rejected. Tharoor, with his signature wit, took a jab at Trump's intellectual quality during the consulate event, drawing laughs, but also showing the tightrope we walked, challenging Trump's narrative without alienating Americans. The U.S. quietly admitted their role was limited to expressing concern, but their overall reception of our MPs was lukewarm, treating the visit as a PR move rather than a policy-shifting moment. The media coverage tells a stark story. In India, Tharoor's U.S. trip was everywhere. Print, TV, digital. Our press framed it as a bold diplomatic win and a show of national unity. The 9/11 memorial tribute, Tharoor's speeches, and diaspora interactions were highlighted with our zero-tolerance message front and center. State-owned and nationalist-leaning outlets gave glowing reviews. But there was a domestic political angle. Some Congress leaders criticized the delegation selection process, noting only one of their four nominees, Anand Sharma, made the cut, while Tharoor and others were included without party consultation. Congress's Jairam Ramesh called the delegations weapons of mass distraction, suggesting the Modi government was using diplomacy to dodge domestic issues like not convening parliament. Still, our media largely celebrated the mission, downplaying any lukewarm U.S. reception. In the U.S., though, coverage was almost non existent. Major outlets barely mentioned our MPs, with the visit reduced to a blip in broader India Pakistan stories. Western media used terms like militants instead of terrorists for the Pahalgam attackers, which we saw as downplaying the attack's gravity. Indian American media, like News India Times and ITV Gold, went all in, amplifying our narrative and rallying the diaspora, but their reach stayed within our community. Strategically, the visit had mixed results. We didn't secure immediate policy wins. No U.S. declaration of Pakistan as a terror sponsor or aid cuts. But we kept our narrative alive among U.S. lawmakers, potentially fostering long-term skepticism toward Pakistan. The visit was a preemptive strike, countering Pakistan's lobbying before their team arrived. It showed Pakistan we're ready to fight a global PR battle, forcing them to respond with their own delegation. For the world, our outreach to 33 countries signaled how seriously we take the terror threat. At home, Indians largely supported the diplomatic push, appreciating the unity of Tharoor standing with BJP MPs. Social media praised Tharoor's eloquence, though some critics called the delegations junkets and argued for focusing on domestic security. The Indian American diaspora felt pride and solidarity, urging U.S. lawmakers to back our fight against terrorism. The U.S. government, though, stayed cautious, sticking to scripted statements. Trump's ceasefire claims caused friction, but our outreach ensured the U.S. didn't openly contradict us, quietly adjusting their messaging to avoid a spat. This was a historic move for us. Unlike past crises, where we sent ministers or diplomats, Operation Sindoor Outreach used 59 MPs across 7 teams, a first-of-its-kind global blitz. After Kargil in 1999 or Mumbai in 2008, we relied on senior officials to make our case. This time, we sent a diverse parliamentary cohort, a bold experiment in democratic diplomacy. Compared to earlier efforts, like lobbying for the Indo-US nuclear deal, this was more public and formalized. We've always tapped the diaspora, but using MPs like Tharoor to rally them on U.S. soil was a new twist. Historically, our ministers secured high-level U.S. meetings, unlike the MP's symbolic nod in 2025. Still, the bipartisan nature of this outreach shows how far we've come. Foreign policy isn't the political football it once was. This could set a precedent for future crises, where we refine this parliamentary diplomacy tool. In the end, the Tharoor-led delegation was a bold step to win the narrative battle after Operation Sindoor. We showed the world our unity and resolve, connected our fight to the global war on terror, and engaged the diaspora as a force multiplier. But the limited U.S. official engagement and scant media coverage remind us that real influence in Washington comes from high-level talks. Still, we planted seeds, shaping arguments lawmakers might use later, building skepticism about Pakistan, and boosting our confidence to engage globally. This wasn't just about military strength, it was about speaking clearly on the world stage. As we move forward, this chapter in 2025 marks a step toward innovative, inclusive diplomacy, where our MPs carry the tricolor abroad to fight for our strategic goals.